The phone call came out of nowhere, shattering the quiet of my evening. My sister Sarah, her voice breaking with sobs, barely coherent through the tears. "They demolished my house," she managed to choke out, "while I was in Chicago for work." I froze, the words not fully sinking in. Demolished, her beautiful home on Maple Street, the one she'd poured her heart into. I told her I'd be there as soon as I could, threw on my jacket, and drove the 2 hours from my place to our hometown in Pine Crest. When I arrived, the sight hit me like a punch to the gut. Where her house once stood, a charming two-story with flower boxes and a neat lawn, there was nothing but rubble, splintered wood, and scattered debris. Sarah was there, standing amidst the wreckage, staring at the ruins of her life. "I was only gone 4 days," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I came back and it was just gone." We wandered through the destruction, stepping over broken furniture and shards of glass when I spotted signs staked into the ground, HOA notices, and a big billboard proclaiming, "Future Community Garden Coming Soon," stamped with the Pine Crest HOA logo. Sarah shook her head, dazed. "I never got a notice, not a letter, an email, nothing. They just tore it down while I was away." An old neighbor shuffled over, his face grim. "It was Karen Winters, the HOA president," he muttered. "She's been a nightmare since she took over last year, going after anyone who doesn't kiss the ring." I clenched my fists, fury rising. I'm the county sheriff in the next county over, but I kept that to myself for now. "Don't tell them I'm the sheriff yet," I whispered to Sarah. "Let's talk to them first, see what they say." I wanted answers before they lawyered up. Someone was going to pay for this, and I'd make damn sure of it. The next morning, we marched to the HOA office, a sleek little building with Pine Crest Homeowners Association in gold letters above the door. Sarah was a wreck, her hands trembling, but I squeezed her shoulder. "Stay calm, let me handle most of it," I said. Inside, a woman sat behind the desk, blonde bob, designer clothes, typing away like we didn't exist. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my tone even. "We need to speak to whoever handles demolition approvals." She glanced up, annoyed. "That be me, Karen Winters, HOA president. Do you have an appointment?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice shaky but firm. "I'm Sarah Johnson. You demolished my house on Maple Street while I was gone. I want to know why." Karen sighed like we were a minor inconvenience and clicked her mouse. 742 Maple Street. Yes, that property violated community standards. We sent multiple notices." "I never got any notices," Sarah snapped. Karen's expression didn't shift. "We can take corrective action under Section 8, Paragraph 4 of the HOA agreement, after 3 violations. Corrective action means fines or repairs, not demolishing a house." I cut in, my voice steady but hard. Karen finally looked at me, sizing me up. "And you are?" "Sarah's brother," I said simply. "I'm here to figure out how this is legal." She rolled her eyes. "The procedures were followed, the board voted, it's all by the book." "I'd like to see the documentation," I pressed. "That's confidential, members only," she shot back, dismissive. Sarah's voice rose. "You destroyed everything, my photos, my grandmother's jewelry." Karen's face hardened. "Perhaps next time you'll take violations seriously. We have standards." My badge burned in my pocket, but I held back. I needed evidence, not a showdown. "We're not leaving without those documents," I said. She stood. "Then I'll call security. This is private property." I guided Sarah out, her sobs echoing as Karen called after us. "The garden will be lovely, much better than that eyesore." In the car, Sarah broke down. "How can she get away with this?" I started the engine. "She won't. She has no idea who she's dealing with." The drive back from the HOA office was silent except for Sarah's muffled sobs, her hands clenched in her lap as she stared out the window. I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing. Karen's smug dismissal, her claim of standards, the way she'd brushed off Sarah's loss like it was nothing. This wasn't just arrogance, it was calculated, and I'd seen enough in my years as sheriff to know illegal didn't always mean sloppy. I needed evidence, hard proof, and I had to move carefully. Revealing my badge too soon would spook her into hiding behind lawyers. "She won't get away with this," I told Sarah, my voice low but firm. "Trust me, I'll handle it." She nodded, wiping her eyes, and I could see the flicker of hope beneath her despair. As soon as we got to my place, I started working, using my position as county sheriff discreetly to dig into what happened. First, I called Linda at the city records department. She and I went way back from county meetings. "Linda, it's Sheriff Johnson," I said, keeping my tone casual. "I need you to check if any demolition permits were filed for 742 Maple Street in Pine Crest last month." I heard her typing, then a pause. "That's weird, there's nothing here, no application, no approval, nothing for that address." "You're sure?" I pressed. 100%, she replied. Last permit in that area was for a shed 3 months ago. I thanked her and asked for an emailed record of the non-existent permit, step 1 in proving Karen had acted illegally. Next, I tracked down Peterson Demolition, their logo still visible on the equipment littering Sarah's lot. I drove across town to their office, badge tucked away, and found Mike Peterson, the owner, behind a cluttered desk. He looked up, nervous the second I walked in. "I'm investigating the demolition at 742 Maple Street," I said, flashing my badge just long enough to make him sweat. "What happened?" Mike threw up his hands. "Look, I just did what the HOA ordered. They gave me paperwork that looked official." "Let me see it," I said. He fumbled through a cabinet, handing me a folder. Inside was an HOA letterhead with Karen's signature authorizing the demolition. No city permit number, no inspector sign-off, just her name and a fake-looking stamp. "Did you know this is illegal without city permits?" I asked. His face paled. "The HOA president said everything was handled. They've used us before for smaller jobs." "Like what?" I pressed. He spilled Karen had ordered unauthorized removals of fences, garden structures, even solar panels. I got him to sign a statement. "Karen told me all paperwork was in order," it read, "and to demolish before the homeowner returned." That last bit was gold, proof of intent. I thanked him, knowing his cooperation might keep him out of cuffs later. Over the next few days, I hit the streets of Pinecrest, quietly interviewing neighbors. Most were hesitant at first, fear of Karen's wrath keeping their mouths shut, but slowly stories poured out. The Johnsons, an elderly couple, told me she'd find them $500 for an ugly bird feeder. Mrs. Patel spoke of harassment over her holiday decorations. One by one, they shared tales of Karen's reign, fines, threats, misery for anyone who dared question her. I collected their statements, building a file thick with her abuses. Sarah tagged along, her confidence growing with each door we knocked on. "I didn't think so many people would support me," she said as we headed back to the car, a stack of signed testimonies in hand. "They're tired of her bullying," I replied. "They just needed someone to stand up first." I dropped the evidence with County Attorney James Martinez laying out the case: destruction of property, fraud, abuse of power. "This is criminal," he said, flipping through the file. "We've got her." I nodded. "Good, let's do this right. She's going down." With the evidence piling up, statements from neighbors, Mike Peterson's confession, proof of no permits, I knew Karen wasn't just a bully. She was a criminal hiding behind HOA bylaws. But she didn't act alone. There was a board, and I needed to know who else was complicit. Using county records, I pulled the names of the 6 members, Karen included, and decided to approach them one by one off the HOA's turf. First was Robert Chin, a banker I caught on his lunch break. "I heard about your sister's house," he said, shifting uncomfortably when I introduced myself as Sarah's brother, no sheriff title yet. "Did you approve that demolition?" I asked, straight to the point. He glanced around. "I wasn't at that meeting. Karen called an emergency session with just 3 members by the time I knew it was done. So she'd bypassed full approval, sloppy and telling." I thanked him and moved on to Maria Gonzalez, who ran a flower shop. She was more open. "Karen's a dictator," she said, hands trembling as she arranged roses. "She threatened to expose my son's old legal trouble if I didn't back her." "What kind of trouble?" I asked. "Minor stuff from years ago. She got the records somehow and held them over me." Blackmail, another charge to add. Bill Anderson, the 3rd member, was a Karen loyalist. "Everything was legal," he insisted. "Your sister ignored warnings." The other 2 echoed Maria's story, coerced into compliance with threats or dirt Karen had dug up. I circled back to Mike Peterson, getting his signed statement notarized. Karen said it was urgent to demolish before the homeowner returned. That deliberate timing was a nail in her coffin. Meanwhile, Sarah and I went door to door collecting more neighbor fines for wrong flowers, a kid's treehouse torn down during church. 15 homeowners signed statements, their fear of Karen fatting as they saw us fight back. "People are tired of this," I told Sarah, her eyes brighter with each ally we gained. "They just needed a push." I took the growing file to James Martinez, the county attorney, who reviewed it with a grim nod. "This is bigger than your sister's house. It's systematic abuse. We'll hit her personally with charges and investigate the whole HOA." We planned a 2-pronged attack: legal action against Karen and a broader probe into the association. By week's end, I had allies, board members like Maria ready to flip, Mike willing to testify, neighbors stepping up. Corinne's power thrived on fear, but that was crumbling fast. "We've got her cornered," I told Sarah as we prepped for the next step. "Now we set the trap." I called the HOA secretary, requesting a spot on the upcoming meeting agenda. "I'd like to discuss recent demolition activities," I said, keeping it vague. She sounded jittery, but added me. Behind the scenes, I organized our evidence into a slick folder: city records, demolition orders, neighbor testimonies, photos of Sarah's wrecked home. "Should we tell them you're the sheriff at the meeting?" Sarah asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let Corinne dig her own grave first. I'll play that card when it hits hardest." I made one more move, calling Dave Williams, a local reporter who'd covered government scandals. "I've got a story about HOA abuse in Pine Crest," I told him, no badge mentioned. "Thursday's meeting might get interesting." "Details," he pressed. "Just be there," I said. "You'll see." I ensured Maria, Robert, and the coerced board members would attend. Maria was nervous, fearing Corinne's retaliation, but I reassured her. "She's done after this." The night of the meeting, the community center buzzed with more people than usual. Word had spread something big was brewing. Corinne strutted in, confident as ever, oblivious to the noose tightening. Sarah and I took front row seats, me in jeans and a jacket, badge hidden. Corinne rushed through routine business, clearly eager to dodge my item. "Now Mr. Johnson wishes to address a demolition matter," she finally said, her disdain palpable. 5 minutes." I stood, folder in hand, ready to spring the trap. "Thank you, Ms. Winters," I said, calm and deliberate. "I'm here about the illegal demolition of my sister's house at 742 Maple Street. Game on." The room hushed as I stepped to the front, my folder of evidence a quiet weight in my hands. Corinne sat at the board table, her sharp bob and designer suit a mask of authority, but I could see the flicker of irritation in her eyes. Sarah gave me a small nod from the front row, her nerves steadying. "Thank you, Ms. Winters," I said, my voice even. "I'm here about the demolition of my sister's house at 742 Maple Street, done last week without permits, without authorization, without any valid notice." Corinne cut in fast, her tone clipped. "We've addressed this privately. Your sister's home violated multiple HOA regulations." "May I see documentation of those violations?" I asked, calm but firm. She waved a hand. "Those are in our files. We sent proper notifications." That's when I opened the folder, the trap snapping shut. Interesting, because I have an official statement from the City Records Department showing no demolition permits were filed or approved for that address. I held up the paper, letting it sink in. Demolishing a house without permits is illegal. A murmur rippled through the crowd, board members shifting in their seats. Corinne's jaw tightened. "The HOA has special provisions," she started, but I didn't let her finish. "I also have a signed confession from Mike Peterson of Peterson Demolition," I said, laying out the next document. "He states you ordered the demolition, assured him all paperwork was in order when it wasn't, and wanted it done while my sister was out of town." Her face reddened. "How dare you come in here with accusations?" "The board approved this." Maria Gonzalez spoke up from the table, her voice shaky but clear. "Actually, Corinne, you only called 3 of us for that vote, an emergency session. I didn't know it was for a full demolition." The room buzzed louder, Corinne's allies peeling away. "I have 15 signed statements from homeowners," I continued, stacking the pile, "detailing your threats, harassment, and abuses of power." The reporter, Dave Williams, scribbled furiously in the back, the crowd's whispers growing into a hum of outrage. Corinne shot to her feet, pointing at me. "This is a smear campaign. Who do you think you are?" The moment I'd waited for arrived. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my badge, and held it high. "County Sheriff Liam Johnson," I said, my voice ringing out. "And you, Corinne Winters, have committed multiple criminal offenses I've been investigating." Gasps erupted, cameras clicked, Corinne's face drained from red to pale, her mouth gaping. "You're the sheriff," she stammered. "That's right," I said, turning to the room. "I've conducted a thorough investigation into my sister's demolition, not just an isolated act, but a pattern of abuse." She rallied, desperate. "You can't investigate us. It's a conflict of interest." "I can begin any investigation into suspected crime in this county," I countered. "And while I've recused myself from leading the case due to my sister's involvement, the county attorney's office agrees there are serious charges here." I laid out the evidence on the table: destruction of property, fraud, blackmail, each document a brick in her downfall. Sarah stood beside me, her voice trembling but fierce. You didn't just destroy a house, Karen. You took my memories, my parents' photos, heirlooms I'll never get back, and you did it on purpose while I was gone. Robert Chin piped up. Karen told us it was all legal. I didn't know. Because you didn't check, an angry homeowner shouted. Chaos brewed as neighbors chimed in with their own stories. I raised a hand. The county attorney is filing charges against Ms. Winters, destruction of property, fraud, operating without permits, abuse of authority. The HOA's under investigation, too. Karen tried to bolt. This meeting's adjourned. I need my attorney. Sit down, I said, firm. Officers outside are waiting for your statement. Right on cue, 2 uniforms stepped in, not to arrest her yet, but to make it real. Her reign was over, and the look on her face, pure, stunned defeat, was worth every second of this fight. The community center crackled with tension as Karen sank back into her chair, the officer's presence a silent hammer driving home her defeat. Her eyes darted, searching for an escape that wasn't there, while the crowd's murmurs swelled into a roar of pent-up anger. You fined me $1,000 for my flowers, one neighbor yelled. She tore down my kid's treehouse, another added. I stood steady, badge still in hand, watching her empire crumble. This isn't over, she hissed as she passed me, escorted out by the officers to give her statement. I just smiled. Actually, Karen, it is, you just don't know it yet. The board scrambled, voting on the spot to suspend her pending investigation, nomming Robert Chin interim president. He promised an overhaul, his voice shaky but earnest. As the meeting broke apart, neighbors swarmed Sarah, offering hugs and support. Her loss had cracked open a dam of solidarity. In the car, she exhaled, a mix of relief and exhaustion. I can't believe we did that, she said. We're not done yet, I replied. This is just the start. The weeks that followed were a legal storm. Karen was formally charged. Destruction of property, fraud, operating without permits, abuse of power. The evidence so airtight her expensive lawyer could barely dent it. She tried claiming the HOA bylaws gave her authority, but when pressed for proof of Sarah's violations, they produced nothing but vague notes and forged notices. Mike Peterson turned over every text and email, including one where Karen wrote, "Finish it before she's back from her trip," damning proof of intent. The county attorney moved fast, and the trial was short. Karen's plea deal shaved off some charges, but the judge didn't go easy. Miss Winters, he said, voice stern, you abused your community's trust, destroyed a home and irreplaceable memories. 18 months in prison, full restitution to Ms. Johnson, plus $250,000 in damages. Her face stayed blank, but her eyes betrayed her. She finally saw the cost. The HOA itself faced penalties, ordered to pay additional damages, and the county slapped new oversight rules on all local associations. The media ate it up. Our local paper splashed, HOA president demolishes sheriff's sister's home across the front page, and the story exploded online. People nationwide shared their own HOA horror tales, turning Sarah's fight into a rallying cry. The community rallied too. A contractor offered to rebuild her house at cost. Neighbors started a fundraiser to replace what they could, though her lost heirlooms were gone forever. It'll never be the same, she told me one night, staring at the rubble, but this support, it's something. I nodded. They're behind you now. Construction began, and on the first day, neighbors showed up to clear debris, their hands dirty but their spirits high. Something good's coming from this, Sarah said as the foundation was poured, the community knitting together in a way Karen had never allowed. Meanwhile, Karen's sentence included a twist of fate. Community service maintaining the real community garden, properly permitted and built next to the playground, not on Sarah's land. I'd drive by sometimes, seeing her in an orange vest, pulling weeds under supervision, her head down. She never looked up, but she knew I was there. The final blow landed with the Johnson Rule, new countywide HOA regulations born from our case, multiple approvals for major actions, documented violations, mandatory waiting periods. No one could wield unchecked power again. 3 neighboring counties adopted it too, and a state senator drafted legislation to take it statewide. Sarah's new house rose from the ashes, bigger windows and an open layout, a fresh start she designed herself. One evening, as we sat on her unfinished porch, the sunset painting the sky, she raised a glass. I'm almost grateful this happened, she said. I blinked. Grateful? It exposed something rotten hurting a lot of people, she explained. Now others are protected because of us. I smiled, clinking my glass to hers. To justice served, I said, and to picking the wrong house to mess with, she added, laughing. Karen had underestimated us. Her arrogance had toppled her throne, and we turned her ruin into something stronger. 6 months after Karen's sentencing, Pine Crest felt like a different world. Sarah's new house stood as a beacon of resilience, its large windows catching the morning light, its open design a quiet defiance of the past. She made it her own, a fresh start carved from the wreckage, and the neighborhood around it had transformed too. The Pinecrest HOA, once Karen's personal fiefdom, was unrecognizable under Robert Chin's leadership. Term limits, transparent decisions, open meetings where people spoke without fear. The air was lighter, the streets alive with small rebellions against her old rules, gardens bursting with unapproved flowers, kids' laughter echoing from treehouses she'd have banned. Sarah moved through her days with a cautious hope, the trauma still there but softened by the community's embrace. "It's like we've all woken up," she told me one afternoon, pruning her new garden. "She kept us scared for so long." I'd been invited to speak at a county-wide HOA reform conference, a room full of board members and homeowners hanging on my words. "What happened to my sister could happen to anyone," I said, standing at the podium. "Power unchecked becomes power abused, but together we can protect homeowners while keeping neighborhoods fair." The Johnson rule had taken root. 3 neighboring counties adopted it, and a state senator was pushing a bill inspired by our fight. Back home, I joined Sarah for a block party on her street, the first in years without Karen's shadow. Mrs. Patel waved me over, offering her famous samosas. "Sheriff Johnson, we're doing a cultural food exchange next month. You must come," she insisted. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, savoring the snack. Kids played freely, gardens bloomed wild, freedom Karen had crushed now flourished. "My brother cleaned up the HOA," Sarah told her new neighbors, a young couple who grinned. "We moved here because of that," the wife said. "Heard this has the fairest HOA around now." Karen was still in prison, reports saying she kept to herself, unrepentant even as her house sold to cover Sarah's damages. Her reputation a ruin no lawyer could salvage. I'd see her sometimes on community service, tending the real garden in her orange vest, her hands dirty but her pride unbroken. She never met my eyes, but I didn't need her to. Her defeat was etched in every weed she pulled. Community garden itself was a triumph, vegetables and flowers thriving, tended by volunteers who turned Karen's excuse into something genuine. One evening, Sarah and I walked there, the sunset casting long shadows over the rows. "I still can't believe it all happened," she said, her voice soft. "Me neither," I admitted, "but it taught me something about being sheriff." "What's that?" she asked. "Justice isn't just enforcing laws, it's protecting people from power-hungry bullies, no matter their title." She nodded, a smile tugging at her lips. Funny thing is, Karen never even knew who she was up against. "She was too arrogant to check," I said, laughing. "Moral of the story, always see if someone's got a sheriff in the family before you break the law." "Or better yet," Sarah added, "don't break it at all." We walked back to her house, the neighborhood peaceful around us, and I felt a quiet pride swell. We stopped one woman's tyranny, given a community its voice, and sparked changes that would shield countless others. All because Karen picked the wrong house, my sister's house, without knowing I'd be the one to bring her down. The block party lingered into the night, music and chatter filling the air, and as I watched Sarah laugh with her neighbors, I knew we'd done more than rebuild a house. We'd rebuilt trust, strength, a place where people could live without fear. Her new porch light glowed, a small but steady signal of everything we'd won. The seasons turned, and Pinecrest settled into a rhythm of renewal. Sarah's house fully finished now, its wide windows reflecting the crisp fall light, its porch a gathering spot for neighbors who'd once kept their doors locked tight. She painted it a soft blue, a color Karen would have fined her for, and planted a wild mix of flowers that spilled over the edges of her yard. Defiant, beautiful chaos. The HOA under Robert Chin kept its promises. Open meetings drew crowds who spoke up without hesitation, and new rules ensured no single voice could dominate again. "It's like we're finally a community," Sarah said one afternoon, handing me a coffee as we sat on her porch. Kids biked past, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves, and I nodded. "You gave them that, you and everyone who stood up." She smiled, a weight gone from her eyes, though the loss of her old memories still lingered like a quiet ache. The Johnson rule rippled outward. 3 counties had it locked in, and the state senator's bill was gaining traction, promising statewide HOA reform. I'd spoken at more conferences, my story a warning and a blueprint. One person's abuse can unravel a neighborhood, but one fight can fix it. Back home, the block parties became tradition. Mrs. Patel's cultural food exchange was a hit. Samosas and empanadas swapped over folding tables, no fines for unapproved dishes in sight. Sarah's new neighbors, the young couple, hosted a movie night in their yard, projecting old classics on a sheet strung between trees. "We wouldn't have moved here without your fight," the husband told me, clapping my shoulder. "This place feels safe now." I watched my sister mingle her laugh easy and felt the truth of it. Corinne's reign was a fatting scar replaced by something stronger. Corinne herself was nearing the end of her sentence, still picking weeds in that community garden under watchful eyes. I'd drive by occasionally, not to gloat, but to see the irony play out. Her future garden excuse now a real patch of growth she had no claim to. Her old house, sold off to pay Sarah's damages, belonged to a family with kids who waved when I passed, oblivious to its history. Reports from the prison said she'd grown quiet, her arrogance dulled but not dead. She'd never admit fault, even as her world collapsed. The media frenzy had died down, but the story lived online, a cautionary tale shared by homeowners everywhere. Sarah got letters sometimes, strangers thanking her for inspiring their own HOA battles. "I didn't expect this," she told me, reading one over breakfast. "Neither did I said, "but it's proof you mattered." One crisp evening we sat in her backyard, a fire pit crackling as the sun dipped low. She invited the Johnsons, Mrs. Patel, and a dozen others, neighbors who'd signed statements, who'd helped clear rubble, who'd rebuilt with her. My sister raised a glass, her voice steady. "To new beginnings," she said, and the group echoed it, clinking bottles and mugs. I caught her eye later as the fire flickered. "You meant what you said about being grateful?" I asked. She nodded. "It hurt like hell losing everything, but it showed me what people can do when they stop being afraid, and it gave us this." She gestured to the circle of faces, the rebuilt house, the quiet street. I smiled. "You're tougher than I thought." "Had to be," she shot back, grinning. "Had a sheriff for a brother." We laughed, and I felt the weight of the past year settle, not as a burden, but as a foundation. Corinne had tried to break her, but Sarah had turned it into something unbreakable, and I'd made damn sure justice backed her up. Fall deepened into winter, and Pinecrest wrapped itself in a quiet, steady peace. Sarah's blue house glowed against the snow, its porch lights a warm beacon on cold nights. She hung a swing out front, a spot where she'd sit with a mug of tea, watching the neighborhood hum with life. The HOA's transformation held firm. Robert Chin stepped down after a year, passing the baton to Maria Gonzalez, who'd found her courage in that meeting and now led with a fairness Corinne never knew. Gardens stayed wild, kids built snowmen without measuring their height, and the community garden, properly permitted, thrived through volunteer hands, a symbol of what Pinecrest could be without fear. "I never thought I'd love it here again," Sarah told me one evening, her breath fogging in the chill as we walked her street. "But it's home now, really home." I nodded, feeling the same pride I'd felt watching her rebuild. The Johnson rule was law in 5 counties now, and the state bill passed, signed with a flourish by the governor who'd called our fight a wake-up call. I testified at the Capitol, my sheriff's badge gleaming under the lights, telling lawmakers, "This isn't just about one house, it's about every homeowner's right to live without tyranny." The reform spread, a legacy born from Sarah's rubble, and I got emails from strangers, thank yous from people I'd never meet, protected by what we'd done. Back in Pinecrest, the block parties rolled on. Spring brought a seedling swap, summer a barbecue where I grilled alongside Greg from across the street. "You're a legend here," he joked, flipping burgers. "Just did my job," I said, but the truth was deeper. I'd protected my sister, and that had changed everything. Sarah thrived, her confidence a quiet force. She'd even joined the HOA board, ensuring it stayed honest. Corinne finished her sentence, released on a gray morning with no fanfare. Her community service done, her restitution paid from her sold-off life. I saw her once, loading a beat-up car outside a rental on the edge of town, her sharp bob gone limp, her eyes avoiding mine. She'd lost it all, house, status, power, and the neighborhood didn't blink at her return. "She's a ghost now," Mrs. Patel said at the next food exchange, passing me a plate of pakoras. "Good riddance." Sarah got a letter from her once, a bitter scrawl. "You ruined me." She showed it to me, then tossed it in the fire pit. "She ruined herself," she said, watching it burn. The community had moved on, her shadow erased by new families, new stories, her old house now a hub of laughter, not threats. The viral article faded from feeds, but its lesson stuck. Don't mess with the wrong house. One spring night, Sarah and I sat on her porch swing, the air soft with blooming lilacs. She framed a photo of us from the rebuild, a grinning crew of neighbors around her new foundation, and hung it inside, a memory she'd chosen over the ones Karen stole. You ever think about how close we came to losing this? She asked, rocking gently. Every day, I said, but we didn't, she did. She smiled, raising her glass. To picking the wrong fight. And to winning it, I added, clinking mine against hers. My job as sheriff had taught me justice was a tool, but this, standing with Sarah, turning her loss into a shield for others, was personal. Pine Crest was ours now, a place of resilience and roots, not rules and ruin. As the sun dipped, casting gold over her wild garden, I knew we'd built more than a house. We'd built a future, and no one could demolish that. Karen's mistake had been colossal, underestimating a sister with a sheriff for a brother, and we'd made sure she, and every HOA bully like her, paid the price.